Hey everyone, I'm Ian Higton and this is the Eurogamer Show. Now, it's been a big week for virtual reality this week. The consumer version of the Oculus Rift was released on Monday, and for a lot of gamers, this launch finally ushered in a brand new era of interactive entertainment. Not everyone has been loving VR though, and quite a few people have been reporting that the games deliver various degrees of nausea, and that got me thinking. Why does VR make some people feel nauseous, and why does it affect different people in different ways? Joining me on the virtual sofa then is someone who I hope can answer those questions for us all. It's Sam Watts from Tammeka Games, the developers of Radial-G, a super cool futuristic racing game that's one of the launch titles for the Oculus Rift. Hey Sam.
Hey Ian, how you doing?
I'm not bad. I'm not feeling nauseous, so that's a good start.
Well, hopefully by the time you finish talking to me, you still won't be either.
I hope so, but I've got a sick bag next to me just in case. So the first time I played Radial-G was during last year's EGX Rezzed, and I remember you telling me that you'd worked really hard on refining Radial-G to reduce motion sickness. Considering it's a game where people are spinning around these crazy roller coaster style tracks at high speeds, I can only imagine that must have been quite tricky. So I guess the big question is, how did you make that experience not vomit inducing?
Well, there's a number of things we did. You say reduce motion sickness, and that's very much correct. I don't think it's ever going to be possible to completely eliminate motion sickness. There'll always be some people who will feel some element of nausea no matter what you do. But there are a number of tricks that we've learned over the past couple of years developing for VR that have greatly reduced the chances of it happening. And especially, as you say, with our game involving a lot of spinning around at 360 degrees at high speed, a lot of it comes from a placebo effect. So people can see the mirrored version of the game on the monitor or TV while somebody else is playing, and a lot of people will look at it and go, oh my god, that's going to make me feel sick, and then they've already planted that little seed in their mind. So that then grows and sometimes can sprout into not a tree of vomit, but it can make them feel sick just purely because they've planted that seed in their mind that it will do, and therefore it ends up doing so. We actually did quite a bit of A/B testing at various events, including Race last year, of actually how much we go into talking about nausea before people experience it. And we now, unless people ask about it specifically, we have a sign up that people can read if they want to, but we try and actively avoid talking about it before they've tried it, just to get away from that whole placebo effect. But in terms of actual design, we are lucky at the moment, just mainly because our game's based in space, and you don't have a horizon in space. So that's one of the ways is to keep it super smooth and comfortable, is you don't have that looking out of a ship window sort of seesaw, a sea flipping about all over the place effect that can make people feel seasick. So there's no real graphical representation of what is necessarily up and down, or what is sky and ground. And then another thing, part of it comes naturally through the fact that it's a cockpit game and you are sat down playing virtually whilst your physical bottom is touching a seat, and that sort of gives you that natural connection between the virtual and physical worlds.
Yeah, I think the cockpit thing is probably quite a big mental safety net when it comes to motion sickness in VR, because you mentioned the game being set in space, and there's another game out at the moment that's also set in space, but this one is making people feel quite poorly, and it's called Adrift. I guess maybe the difference here is that they're not in a cockpit, so their brain isn't being tricked into thinking they're sat down.
Yeah, I've not actually managed to try it myself. I know they do have a number of options to make it more comfortable that you can turn on and off. But I'd imagine with that, it's because of the free floating element. it doesn't make it that much difference to a certain degree from a first-person shooter. So with FPS games, where you're moving around at high speeds, you're not necessarily moving at rates that your brain would accept to be natural. And because it is just so much more immersive and it's all wrapping all around you, there's no escape. So it is much more overwhelming, especially coupled then with the adrift scenario where you've got limited oxygen and sort of fear and danger is around every corner. Then it just gets your heart going, and that all adds to the situation.
Yeah,
I think they have a couple of view modes. So when you move your head with the Rift on, I think the default mode is actually you're moving your head inside the spacesuit, opposed to just sort of moving a free look camera around. So I'd imagine that would help a little bit, but would also add to the claustrophobia and other elements that can make people feel sick in other ways.
Yeah, so it sounds like you kind of think that the science behind the sickness is to do with people's almost psychosomatic, I guess. People are putting a lot of the fears and the nausea into their heads before they've even put the headset on. Yeah,
to a certain degree. I mean, most of it actually comes. It's a leftover genetic. Once upon a time, it was a advancement for us as early human beings when we were first walking around on two legs, trying out various nuts and berries to sustain ourselves. It's the sensation of the brain thinking you're moving, but your ears telling you that you're not moving. So it gets a disconnect, and basically your ears are all to do with balance and everything else. So if your ears are telling your brain that your balance is wrong or the movement is wrong, it actually kicks into this element which there's a link between your ears and a small part of your stomach. It basically says that you've been poisoned and therefore you should puke up as quick as possible to get rid of whatever it is you've eaten. So it's a leftover from the sort of Neanderthal days, and this is partially what causes motion sickness in VR, because you get that disconnect between brain and ears and that little bit in your stomach.
That's what I noticed. That is the feeling I noticed when I played Team Fortress, actually. A kind of a horrible lurch in my stomach when my vision moved, but I guess my brain expected my body to move, but it didn't. Yeah.
But then it is generally just a feeling of nausea. We've done numerous events and probably showcased to over 5,000 people, and we keep a little logbook of people who have to stop within 20 seconds, and we're still tracking less than 1% of all attendees. But I've not seen online, and I'm pretty sure it would be everywhere, especially in video format, and I've not seen it personally, anybody actually being sick. It's just people having that sensation of sort of travel sickness or nausea.
Yeah, no, that would definitely end up on YouTube in an instant if someone was to chunder in a Vive.
Some people have been playing Half-Life 2 and Team Fortress 2 on DK1 and DK2 for extensive periods without feeling any sickness whatsoever. Some people are just very strong Rift legs or stomachs and are fine. Even though we've been developing VR and I'm using all kinds of different headsets daily, from the very latest and the very best to very early prototypes and sort of slightly shonky hardware that don't give the most comfortable, highest performing experiences. I've got generally pretty strong Rift legs, but for me, I can't do a first person at sort of Quake speed for more than 20 seconds. I feel ill. But something like Alien Isolation, where you're creeping around fairly slowly and it's much more natural speeds, I've spent the longest play session I had in that was 3 hours.
Wow.
I mean, it was absolutely terrifying for other reasons, but in terms of any kind of VR movement-induced nausea, I was absolutely fine, just because it's much more natural movement speed. But then we look at games like, was it Rigs on PSVR?
Yeah.
And Worldwide Tunes, I think it's called. They are fast-paced FPS games coming out, which people seem to play and seem to find fine. So cockpits are the safe option. As the hardware improves, as the refresh rates improve, the latencies drop, it will all help. But that's why Oculus has added the comfort ratings, just to give people an idea of, how far they might have to push themselves to enjoy a particular game or experience.
Cool. Well, I guess then, finally, because you're a big VR enthusiast, what would you say to someone who is scared of trying VR because they think it might make them feel sick? Have you got any words of comfort for them?
Well, it's just sort of best to start them off gently, maybe with a cardboard 360 video, or a Gear VR video, just to give them the idea of having something on their face and being able to look all around, but it not being interactive or being too scary or full presence or immersion. Then kind of knocking it up a gear each time. So starting off with your alcohol-free cardboard, and then your sort of Miller Lite Gear VR, before you get onto the full sort of Belgian ales of Oculus Rift and HTC Vive.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us, Sam. For any of you VR heads out there who want to try out Radial-G for yourselves, you can get it right now on Steam and the Oculus Home Store. Actually, are there any plans to bring Radial-G to any of the other VR platforms that are coming out soon?
Yep. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have the Steam version updated so it supports the Vive. It will still be a seated experience with the gamepad, but we thought that the Vive will still need some cockpit seated experiences. People can't spend all their time waving their arms around, running around a square area. They will want to sit down occasionally.
Fair enough.
And then we'll be on PSVR in October now, isn't it? So it's nice to have launch dates for the hardware to give us a launch date to aim for.
Oh, so you're a launch date for the PSVR as well?
Well, let's say launch window at this period. Awesome.
Oh, that's pretty exciting, though. But that's the one I'm getting, so I'll be looking forward to playing
Excellent.
Radial-G on that. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Sam, and thank you very much, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and do subscribe to Eurogamer for plenty more videos in the near future. It's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Sam.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Werewolves Within is a multiplayer game that sits you down with a bunch of other players, each represented by a cartoonish avatar. You're all living together in a village, but the problem is there are werewolves in your midst.